Rain fell in quick, uneven bursts, splashing against the city streets with a rhythm that made Emma quicken her pace. She tucked her hair under the collar of her coat and adjusted her bag, wondering if the storm would drive people indoors or leave the sidewalks empty like they were now. It had been one of those long days where every small annoyance piled up: the missed bus, the spilled coffee, the endless meetings that seemed to stretch on forever. She hadn't expected anything extraordinary tonight, yet something in the damp, glowing streets felt different, almost electric, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Emma ducked under the awning of a small cafe on the corner, shaking raindrops from her shoulders. Warm light spilled out from the windows, inviting and familiar. She hesitated at the door, scanning the quiet street before pushing it open. The bell above the entrance jingled softly, and the smell of coffee, pastries, and rain-soaked air wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. The place was nearly empty, save for a few scattered patrons lost in their books or laptops. Her eyes caught him immediately. Son. He sat alone at a table by the window, a cup of coffee cradled in his hands, the steam curling around his face. His hair was slightly longer than she remembered, a little tousled from the wind, and there was a subtle change in his expression, a quiet seriousness, tempered by something she couldn't quite name. Her heart jumped. The last time she had seen him had been years ago, back when life felt simpler, when laughter came easily, and evenings were filled with the careless joy of youth. And now, seeing him here, so unexpectedly, brought a rush of memories she hadn't realized she was still carrying. Son's gaze lifted as if sensing her presence. Their eyes met across the small distance of the cafe, and for a second, the world outside, the rain, the passing cars, the dimly lit street, seemed to vanish. Recognition, surprise, and something unspoken passed between them. Emma's pulse quickened. She took a careful step forward, unsure if she was ready to confront the feelings that had waited silently for years. Emma, his voice was low, hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he dared to hope that she had come back into his life. Yes, she said softly, letting the word float between them. It's been a long time, son. She smiled, tentative, almost shy, but with a warmth that reflected the storm of emotions inside her. The sound of her own voice surprised her, calm, steady, yet carrying the weight of memories and unspoken thoughts. Son's lips curled into a smile, small but genuine, and for a moment it felt like the years apart melted away. Emma noticed the faint lines around his eyes, subtle traces of the life he had lived without her, but they didn't diminish the familiarity she felt. In fact, they made him more real, more human, more present. She remembered the ease of talking with him, the way laughter had come effortlessly, the way he had once made even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. He gestured to the empty chair across from him, and she took it, careful not to let her nerves show. The cafe hummed quietly around them, a gentle soundtrack to the reunion neither had expected but both seemed to need. They exchanged small talk at first, brushing against the edges of stories and life events that had unfolded in their absence. Son talked about work, about the city, about the subtle changes in his routine that made him feel like he was finally finding his rhythm. Emma spoke of her own days, her ambitions, her small victories, and her quiet frustrations. The conversation deepened naturally, slipping past casual chatter into territory neither had anticipated. They shared memories that made them both laugh, a careless road trip, a failed cooking experiment, the silly arguments that had seemed monumental at the time. And yet, there were pauses, brief silences where words failed, replaced by glances that carried unspoken acknowledgement of the time they had lost. Emma felt a tightness in her chest, a mixture of longing and curiosity, wondering how much had changed, and how much had stayed the same. The rain outside continued, tapping against the glass with soft insistence, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. Emma noticed the way Son's eyes lingered a moment longer than necessary on her face, the subtle way his posture shifted when he leaned in to hear her over the murmur of the cafe. She realized that this wasn't just nostalgia. This was something alive, something that had waited quietly for the right moment to resurface. Emma's mind wandered briefly, thinking about the years that had passed. the friendships, the small heartbreaks, the choices that had led them down different paths. Yet here they were, in this unplanned reunion, as if fate had quietly arranged it all. Her chest ached with a bittersweet mixture of joy and regret, a recognition that some things could never be fully regained, but could be rediscovered in new ways. Son's voice pulled her back to the present. "I never expected to see you here," he said, his tone soft, almost vulnerable. "I didn't know I needed this." Emma smiled again, a little more confidently this time, feeling the warmth of connection settle around her like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Neither did I," she admitted, "but I'm glad it happened." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. They acknowledged the past, the distance, and the possibility of something more without forcing it into clarity too soon. For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to breathe fully, to sit in the comfort of the moment without rushing it or overthinking it. Son's presence was grounding, and the gentle rhythm of the cafe, the soft murmur of voices, the patter of rain outside, it all created a space where they could simply exist together. Rediscovering each other piece by piece, they lingered, neither wanting to break the fragile bubble of time they had stepped into. Emma felt a mixture of anticipation and calm. The past had brought them here, but the future was uncertain. And yet, there was an undeniable thrill in that uncertainty, a sense that perhaps some things were worth waiting for, worth rediscovering, worth giving a chance even after years apart. As Emma sipped her coffee, she realized she hadn't felt this alive in months. The spark of connection, quiet but persistent, made her heart race and her mind whirl with possibilities. She glanced out the window at the rain-streaked street, then back at Son, noticing the faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. And in that moment, she understood something she hadn't fully acknowledged before. Sometimes life brings people back at exactly the right time, in the most unexpected ways, and the only choice was to embrace it. The day after their unexpected meeting, Emma couldn't shake the memory of Son's smile. The city seemed different now, brighter, softer, alive in a way it hadn't been before. She wandered through the streets, coffee in hand, thinking about how their conversation had flowed effortlessly, as if the years apart were nothing more than a brief pause. Her phone buzzed, and a message from Son lit up the screen. "Walk by the river tonight? I know a place you'll like." She smiled and typed back quickly, "I'll be there." By evening, the rain had cleared, leaving the river glistening under the glow of the city lights. Emma arrived first, the cool air brushing her cheeks, and spotted Son waiting near the bridge. His posture was relaxed, yet something in the way he glanced at the water suggested he was lost in thought. She approached him cautiously, unsure if her heart could handle the sudden rush of feelings, yet drawn irresistibly forward. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, turning to meet her gaze. There was warmth in his eyes, but also something deeper, a quiet vulnerability that made Emma's chest tighten. He gestured toward the path along the riverbank. "Shall we?" They walked side by side, the gentle sound of water lapping against the shore keeping a steady rhythm beneath their words. Conversation came easily at first, but soon it deepened, touching on memories and small confessions. Emma told him about her work, about the projects that excited her, the moments that frustrated her, and Son listened with genuine interest, nodding, occasionally offering soft chuckles or thoughtful comments. It amazed her how natural it felt to share these things with him, even after so many years. "You always had a way of seeing things clearly," Son said after a pause, his voice low and sincere, "even when I was too stubborn to notice them myself." Emma felt a warm blush rise to her cheeks. "And you always made me feel like the world was bigger than it was," she admitted. "Like there was more out there than just what I could see." They laughed lightly, the sound mingling with the evening air. Emma noticed the subtle gestures, the way Son's hand occasionally brushed against hers, how he adjusted his pace to match hers, the way his eyes seemed to linger a second longer on her face. She hadn't realized how much she had missed these small, quiet intimacies until now. As they reached a small park along the river, Son pointed out the benches that faced the water. "I like this spot," he said. "It's peaceful. You can see the lights reflecting on the water, and it feels like the city slows down just for a moment." Emma sat down on one of the benches, taking in the view. The water sparkled under the soft glow of the lights, and the air smelled faintly of damp earth and blooming flowers. She felt a calm she hadn't known she needed, and for the first time in weeks, she let herself exhale fully. Son joined her, sitting close but not too close, giving them both space, yet creating a quiet intimacy. "You know," he said after a moment, "I've missed this. I've missed talking like this, being with someone who understands without needing to fill the..." The weeks that followed their evening by the river felt like a gentle unfolding of something Emma had almost forgotten she could feel. She and Son met often, sometimes at quiet cafes, other times wandering through galleries or parks. Each encounter carried a familiar comfort, yet every moment also buzzed with an energy that made her heart race in ways she hadn't experienced in years. The city itself seemed to bend around them, the streets and cafes becoming private stages where their rediscovery could unfold. Emma noticed Son in new ways. There was a quiet strength in him now, tempered by the subtle weight of life's challenges. Lines of stress around his eyes, and the way he sometimes paused mid-thought revealed struggles she hadn't known about. But there was also laughter in his voice, a spark of warmth in his smile, and a softness in the way he regarded her. Son was different from the man she had once known, more grounded, more thoughtful, yet somehow still the same soul that had once made her feel alive with a single glance. One evening, they found themselves at a small park Emma had never visited before. The city lights glimmered in the distance, and the soft hum of traffic was a distant, comforting presence. They walked along a narrow path lined with trees, their shadows stretching long and thin in the lamplight. The air smelled faintly of blooming flowers and wet earth, a combination that reminded Emma of late spring nights from her childhood. Son paused, leaning against the railing of a small overlook that gave a view of the city skyline. "I like this place," he said, voice quiet. "It feels honest. No distractions. Just the city, us, and the night." Emma nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "Sometimes the simplest moments are the ones that stay with you," she said. Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of a feeling that was slowly growing inside her. Something that wasn't quite longing or love yet, but something powerful enough to make her pulse quicken. They sat on a nearby bench, letting the night surround them. Conversations flowed as naturally as before, but Emma noticed a subtle shift. Son shared more of himself, his quiet regrets, the moments he had doubted himself, the mistakes he wished he could redo. She listened carefully, understanding that he was trusting her with pieces of his heart he hadn't offered anyone else in years. In turn, Emma spoke of her own struggles, the times she had felt invisible, the moments she had feared that life might pass her by without notice. Each revelation drew them closer, creating a bond that felt unspoken yet undeniable. At one point, Son fell silent, looking out over the skyline. Emma followed his gaze and saw the way the lights reflected on the river below, the water glowing like molten silver. "You know," he said finally, turning toward her, "I never realized how much I wanted someone to share these moments with until now." Emma's chest tightened, a flutter she couldn't suppress. "I think we often don't notice the things we've been missing until they show up unexpectedly," she whispered. Her words were deliberate, quiet, carrying the weight of longing she had tried to ignore. Son smiled faintly, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face. The touch was soft, almost hesitant, but it sent a shiver down her spine. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned slightly closer, letting the warmth of his hand linger. The world seemed to pause, the distant city noise fading into nothingness as they existed only in that moment. "I like this," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I like us just like this. No past, no expectations, just now." Emma's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Sometimes," she said, echoing the phrase that had come to define her evenings with him, "you have to go with the flow. Let yourself enjoy what's in front of you." Son's gaze softened, a mixture of relief and longing passing through his eyes. For the first time, He seemed to let go of the tension he had carried, the walls he had built around himself during years of solitude. Emma realized that their time together wasn't just a reconnection for her. It was a moment of healing for him as well. The understanding between them felt rare, fragile, yet powerful, as if the universe had quietly aligned to offer them this chance. They continued walking through the park, hands occasionally brushing, sometimes clasping briefly before letting go. Every touch, every glance, was a gentle confirmation of a bond forming that neither had expected, yet both felt instinctively. Emma felt the warmth of his hand long after it moved away, the memory lingering in a way that made her heart beat a little faster. At a small fountain, they paused again. The water danced in soft arcs, lit by hidden lamps, creating a serene, magical atmosphere. Son leaned slightly closer, his voice low. "I feel like I've been waiting for this, without even knowing it, waiting to feel something real again." Emma swallowed, the words resonating deeply within her. She felt the same. "I've missed this too," she admitted. The quiet, the laughter, the moments that don't need to be explained or justified. Just being together. There was a silence then, but it wasn't awkward. It was a silence filled with understanding, with unspoken acknowledgement that something was blossoming between them. Emma realized that love didn't always announce itself with fireworks or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it arrived quietly, softly, through shared moments, gentle gestures, and the kind of presence that made everything else fade into the background. Son tilted his head slightly, his expression thoughtful. "Go with the flow," he said softly, the words deliberate this time. "I understand now, and I think I like it." Emma laughed lightly, a sound that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "I'm glad," she whispered, "because I really am enjoying this, being here with you." They stayed there for a long while, watching the fountain, watching the city, and listening to each other's breathing and quiet thoughts. The night wrapped around them, protective, intimate, allowing them to exist in a bubble that felt completely their own. Emma felt a tenderness for Son she hadn't anticipated, a gentle, insistent pull that made her heart ache in a way that was both thrilling and comforting. As they began to walk back toward the park's entrance, the air felt warmer somehow, charged with the electricity of unspoken feelings. Emma realized that each step they took together was a step into something unknown, but beautiful. She didn't need to define it, didn't need to label it. It was enough to feel the quiet intimacy, the growing trust, the shared hope that something new could bloom between them. When they reached the edge of the park, Son turned to her, a soft, almost shy smile on his lips. "Thank you," he said, voice gentle, "for being here, for letting me share this with you." Emma's chest swelled. She felt a surge of gratitude and affection for the man who had returned unexpectedly to her life. "No," she said softly. "Thank you for letting me in." The days after their evening in the park passed in a blur of small joys and quiet anticipation. Emma and Son had fallen into a rhythm, meeting wherever the city felt alive. Cafes, riverside paths, galleries, even the little bookshop tucked away on a side street that smelled of old paper and coffee. Each meeting carried a sense of discovery, as if they were learning not only about each other again, but also about themselves. The world had slowed for them, yet their hearts raced with a new energy that neither could ignore. One Friday evening, Son suggested a walk along the river again. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and pink as the sun began to dip below the horizon. Emma arrived a few minutes early, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves and excitement that had become a constant companion when he was near. Son appeared soon after, his coat buttoned neatly, a scarf wrapped loosely around his neck. He smiled when he saw her, a warmth in his eyes that made her chest tighten. "Hey," he said, his voice low, calm, but carrying a hint of the nervousness she had come to recognize. "Hey," she replied, her own smile soft but genuine. The word felt heavier this time, filled with all the anticipation and emotion that had built over their weeks together. They began walking along the familiar path, the river shimmering beside them in the fading light. Conversation came easily at first, light-hearted and playful, but soon it deepened, slipping into more personal reflections. Emma noticed how Sun's gaze would linger on her for a fraction of a second longer, how he seemed to search for the words he wanted to say without forcing them. She recognized the same mixture of longing and uncertainty she felt in herself, a careful dance of vulnerability and restraint. "I've been thinking," Sun said quietly after a long pause, "about how life brings people back at the exact right time. Even when you don't realize it, even when it seems late, it finds a way." Emma glanced at him, the soft sunset reflecting in his eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I feel the same. It's like something paused, and now it's starting again. But this time, it's different. Better." They walked in silence for a moment, listening to the water lapping gently against the banks. Emma felt the quiet intimacy of their shared space, the simple joy of presence without pressure or expectation. Sun's hand brushed hers as they moved, deliberate and gentle, yet fleeting. Emma didn't pull away. Instead, she let the connection linger, savoring the warmth it brought. Eventually, they reached a small wooden bench overlooking the river. The city lights had started to twinkle in the distance, creating a backdrop of soft gold and silver. Sun leaned against the railing next to her, and for a moment, neither spoke, letting the quiet of the evening envelop the